If this story moved you even a little, let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to hear what corner of the world you're in. Every comment helps bring us closer as a community that shares, heals, and grows through stories. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, because tomorrow's episode is something truly special. A moment that just might change how you see love, family, and second chances. Stay with me, and let's keep walking through these stories together, one night at a time. She escaped a loveless contract, but a positive pregnancy test brought her back Avery. Morgan never planned on leaving Alabama. Not like this. At just 25, she'd spent her whole life in a small town where everyone knew each other's birthdays, secrets, and Sunday schedules. She worked double shifts at the local diner, saved every spare dollar, and dreamed of someday opening her own bakery. But all those dreams vanished the night her father lost everything in a single hand of poker. The house, the car, even her future. In a desperate attempt to settle his debt, her father made a choice Avery would never forget. He signed her life away. Within days, she was on a bus headed to New York City, clutching a contract that didn't feel real. 5 years. That's what it said. 5 years as a personal assistant to Daniel Reyes, CEO of Reyes Medical Group, a man whose name made headlines and whose stare could freeze boiling water. She expected an older man, maybe cruel, maybe careless. What she didn't expect was a 34-year-old with storm gray eyes, an expensive watch, and a list of rules so long it came with its own binder. No personal questions, no emotional entanglements, no expectations. That was rule number 1. Daniel made it clear from the start. This wasn't about love. This was a transaction. She would be his assistant, keep up appearances, attend business events, and in return, her father's debt would disappear. That was the deal. She accepted it, not because she wanted to, but because she had no other choice. The first weeks were cold, professional, and painfully awkward. Avery lived in the guest room of his high-rise penthouse, wore clothes chosen by his assistant's assistant, and learned quickly how to navigate the ruthless pace of Daniel's world. He was sharp, composed, and always 5 steps ahead. But beneath the layers of luxury and control, she started to notice things. Like how he kept a picture of a little girl in his desk drawer, or how he always hesitated before leaving for work, staring out the window like he was searching for something he'd lost long ago. Despite the walls he built, moments cracked through. Late-night talks over chamomile tea, shared silences in the elevator. That one time she made him laugh, really laugh, and saw, just for a second, the man he used to be. Still, Avery reminded herself, this was a contract, not a connection. She couldn't afford to believe otherwise. Yet something had changed, not in the fine print of the agreement, but in the way he looked at her when she wasn't watching, in the way he remembered her favorite coffee, in the way he stood a little too close during those endless boardroom meetings. And though Avery tried to pretend it meant nothing, the truth was simple. This deal had already begun to unravel. What started as a desperate solution was becoming something far more dangerous, something that looked a lot like love. Avery Morgan never thought a single cup of coffee could betray her. It started small, an early morning wave of nausea, the kind you blame on too little sleep or too much stress. But it didn't stop. She'd barely made it to the elevator that day, gripping her stomach and praying Daniel Reyes wouldn't see how pale she looked. By the time she fainted in the hospital lobby 2 hours later, her body had made the decision for her. When she woke up, the room was quiet. Too quiet. White walls, soft beeping, that sterile hospital scent that never quite fades. Then she saw the chart at the foot of her bed. Her name, her age, and next to it, 2 words that changed everything. Pregnancy confirmed. Her hands trembled as she reached for the edge of the bed. She didn't understand. She and Daniel hadn't crossed that line, had they? One night, a night she barely remembered after that company gala, when champagne flowed and her defenses were down. She hadn't let herself think too hard about that night. Until now. The door creaked open. She turned her head slowly, expecting a nurse or maybe a stranger with more paperwork. Instead, in walked Daniel, buttoned up in his tailored suit, clipboard in hand, and a look on his face that wasn't professional. It was personal. Too personal. "You're my patient," he said softly, eyes locking onto hers. She blinked. "What?" Daniel hesitated. "Your attending physician couldn't make it. I stepped in." Avery sat up straighter, pulling the blanket to her chest. "This is a joke, right? Tell me this is a joke." "It's not." He cleared his throat. "I've reviewed the test myself. You're approximately 7 weeks along. You didn't know?" "No." Her voice cracked. "And I wouldn't have come here if I did." The silence that followed was thick. Daniel didn't move. He didn't look away. His hands clenched the clipboard so tightly, the paper creased. Something flickered behind his eyes. Guilt? Regret? She couldn't tell. Avery stood up. Her legs were shaking, but her voice wasn't. "I'm keeping the baby, but I'm not keeping this arrangement. Avery, no." She raised a hand. "Whatever this was, whatever we were pretending to be, it ends here. I won't let you control me or this child. I've played by your rules, Daniel. But this is mine." He stepped toward her. "You don't have to do this alone." She shook her head. "I'm not afraid to." Daniel didn't stop her as she walked past him, out of the room, out of the life they'd constructed together. But as the door shut behind her, the weight of what they'd created, what he might already be losing, pressed down like a tidal wave. For Avery, this wasn't just a pregnancy. It was a line in the sand, and Daniel Reyes had just realized he might have crossed it. Too late. 3 weeks after Avery walked out of that hospital room, her world turned upside down again. She'd barely settled into the rhythm of her new life, working double shifts, hiding her pregnancy under baggy sweaters, and pretending the father of her child didn't run the very hospital whose name haunted every street corner. But then the phone call came. One shaky voice, 4 words, and everything stopped. "It's Liam." His heart. Avery dropped her coffee cup. It shattered across the floor, unnoticed. Her brother, 18 years old, kind-eyed and stubborn as hell, was rushed into Reyes Medical with chest pain. By the time she got there, his condition had a name: restrictive cardiomyopathy. Terminal without a transplant. Immediate listing. No guarantees. She held his hand as the machines beeped. He looked so small under the sheets the way he used to, after their parents fought and he'd crawl into her bed, whispering promises he couldn't keep. "One day, I'll protect you." And now, here he was, waiting for her to protect him. Days passed like years. Then, hope. A match. A real, viable donor heart had become available. Dr. Adrian Wells, the ethical but blunt cardiologist, gave her a half smile. "It's not a miracle, but it's the best shot we've got," Avery cried in the hallway. Relief. Gratitude. But it didn't last. Not 24 hours later, the donor heart was gone. Reassigned. Redirected. "An emergency," the hospital said. "A higher priority patient." But that wasn't the truth. The truth came from a nurse who whispered what she wasn't supposed to know. The heart had been claimed by Isabel Tran, the hospital CEO's fiancée, for her mother, a wealthy donor. A powerful name. Avery stormed through the halls, ignoring the alarms in her chest. She found Daniel in a conference room, surrounded by executives. She didn't care. "You let her steal his heart," she hissed. Daniel stood, confused at first. "Avery, don't lie to me." Her voice cracked, but her spine didn't. "My brother was next on that list, and now it's going to Isabel's mother. Why? Because she wrote a bigger check?" The room froze. Daniel looked from her to the silent staff, then back. "I didn't approve anything." "No?" Her eyes burned. "Then you better find out who did. Because if Liam dies, because of your fiancé, I swear I will bury Reyes Medical with my bare hands." Daniel opened his mouth, but she was already gone. The door slammed behind her like a final verdict. Later that night, Dr. Wells called her. His voice was low, tired. "I fought for Liam. I did. But someone pulled rank above me." Avery didn't sleep. The next morning, she stood over Liam's bed, watching his chest rise and fall. Her baby growing inside her kicked, as if to remind her, "You're not just fighting for one life anymore." She looked at Liam, then whispered to herself, "They started a war, and she wasn't planning to lose." A week after Liam's transplant was stolen, Avery Morgan stopped waiting for justice. The hospital board had gone silent. Dr. Wells was benched without reason. Isabel Tran, still flaunting her diamond engagement ring, parading through Reyes Medical, as if she hadn't just condemned a teenager to die. Avery tried everything: news outlets, lawyers, even a protest outside the hospital gates. But Isabel had deep pockets and deeper influence. Every article was buried. Every phone call went unanswered, until a message arrived. A thumb drive. No sender, no return address. Just a single file. A surveillance video from the transplant coordination office. It showed Isabel, face uncovered, barging into the donor prioritization meeting with 2 security guards. She slammed papers on the table, screamed something about family legacy, and walked out with signed documents. It was the proof Avery needed. She drove straight to Daniel's penthouse, shaking, clutching the flash drive like a weapon. When he opened the door, tie undone, she didn't waste a second. "She stole my brother's future," Avery snapped, "and now I have proof." Daniel watched the video in silence. Then again, and again. When it ended, he looked at her. "I didn't know," he said. "But I do now." That same night, Isabel vanished. The media exploded. Heiress missing after hospital scandal. Anonymous sources leaked that Daniel had turned over key evidence to authorities. The FBI got involved. The Reyes board demanded Isabel's resignation. Too late. She had already disappeared. For a while, the city buzzed with theories: suicide, runaway, plastic surgery, and a new life in Dubai. No one could agree. Then came the wedding invitation, handwritten. No return address, just a date, a time, and a rooftop location atop the Reyes Medical Group headquarters. A private event, small, intimate. The bride, Avery Morgan. The groom, Daniel Reyes. It was a trap. Daniel and Avery worked every angle: law enforcement, private security, even backup medics on site in case things turned ugly. The plan was simple: draw Isabel out with the one thing she couldn't resist: Daniel's name. On the night of the ceremony, fairy lights twinkled against the New York skyline. Avery wore a champagne silk gown, hand-sewn by a seamstress Daniel had flown in from Paris. Her belly barely showed, but she walked like a woman on a mission. As the fake vows began, the rooftop door burst open. Isabel stood in the frame. Hair, wild, lipstick smeared, holding a silver pistol with shaking hands. "No!" she shrieked. "He's mine! You think I'd let some waitress from Alabama steal what I built for 10 years? SWAT moved fast. She didn't fire, but she screamed, cried, fought, and then she was gone, cuffed, hauled down 17 flights, the scandal finally exposed. Avery turned to Daniel, heart pounding. That wasn't in the wedding script. He smiled, pulling her close. Neither was falling in love. She didn't kiss him, not yet. But when the last siren faded, she let herself exhale, for the first time in months. The war was ending, and for the first time, she believed in a tomorrow. The rooftop was empty now. The fairy lights still glowed, swaying in the breeze like they didn't know a gun had been drawn beneath them just an hour earlier. Avery stood alone, barefoot, her heels dangling from one hand. The silk of her wedding dress brushed against her ankles as she walked toward the edge of the rooftop. New York shimmered beneath her, alive and indifferent. She heard his steps before he spoke. Daniel. He didn't say anything at first, just stood beside her, hands in his pockets. His once pristine suit slightly wrinkled, the collar loosened. "I guess this makes it official," he said quietly. "The fake wedding that saved a life." Avery turned to him, her voice soft but steady. "Isabel's in custody. Liam's finally back on the donor list. You did what you promised. Thank you." Daniel shook his head. "I didn't do it for your brother. Not only. I did it because I needed to stop hiding." She furrowed her brow. "Do you remember the scar on my shoulder?" he asked. "The one I told you came from a bar fight?" Avery nodded. "It wasn't a bar. It was your father's house," he said. "5 years ago, the night he tried to hand you off to those men. I was there." She froze. "I was the one who dragged you out, got between you and them, took the hit. And after that night, I couldn't forget you, but I didn't come back. I buried myself in work, built walls, told myself I was saving you from me." Avery felt her knees weaken. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't think I was worthy of you," Daniel whispered. "You were light. I was just surviving. But then you showed up 5 years later. Same fire in your eyes, even more strength in your voice. And suddenly I wanted more." A tear slid down Avery's cheek. "You should have told me sooner." "I'm telling you now," he said. Then he pulled a small velvet box from his coat. "Not because of a contract, not because of obligation, but because I love you, Avery Morgan. I loved you before I even knew your name." She stared at the ring. Her voice trembled. "And what if I say yes? Then we stop surviving and start living." Avery didn't answer with words. She stepped into him, burying her face in his chest as the city wind whipped around them. His arms wrapped around her without hesitation. In the weeks that followed, things didn't magically fix themselves. Liam's surgery still hung in the balance. The hospital board launched investigations. The media wanted blood. But through it all, Avery and Daniel stood together. There were no more secrets, no more masks, just two broken people choosing each other, day by day. And for the first time in a long, long while, Avery Morgan felt like she belonged, not to a contract, not to a name, but to a man who finally saw her worth and loved her anyway. Thank you for joining us on this emotional roller coaster. Avery and Daniel's story has been filled with pain, resilience, and redemption. Now, we want to hear from you. What would you have done if you were in Avery's shoes? Could you have walked away from the man who broke your heart, even if he was also the one who saved your life? Or would you have taken that final leap of faith and said yes to love despite everything? Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from and how this story made you feel. Were you surprised by the ending? Did any moment in their journey hit you deep? We read every comment, and your thoughts truly shape the next episodes. If this story moved you, inspired you, or even made you shed a tear, Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We have another heart-tugging chapter coming tomorrow, and trust us, you won't want to miss it. This is more than just a drama. It's a conversation. So let's talk about it. We're listening.